Well, welcome to Consciously Competent. My name is Rob Slaughter, and I'm the president of Competently. And we are the most complete talent intelligence solution on the marketplace right now. We have a people first philosophy and point of view in the marketplace, which I know sounds counterintuitive, a software platform that's people obsessed, but that's our prime directive is to empower teams inside of organizations and to help develop people inside of organizations, do better jobs, end up being more productive, and impact the bottom line of organizations. And I'd like to welcome back Malvika Jeff Milani, and she's the co-founder of Atvis Group. And Malvika, Atvis Group is a human capital advisory firm. And welcome back, Malvika. We're glad to have you again. We had a great conversation the first time, and going to change things a little bit on us because we're going to talk about some trust issues today, aren't we?
That's right. Excited to dive in.
Yeah, why don't you kind of set the table for us here on, from your perspective, advising HR professionals and senior HR professionals and CEOs. What are you seeing? I mean, how's trust impacting businesses right now?
Yeah, so I first started writing about this topic a little over a year ago because what I observed, especially in this sort of post-pandemic complex workplace that we're all in, is trust in the workplace is in crisis. We have a very clear employer-employee trust deficit. And we know from recent research that only about a third of employees say that they trust management in their company. And so that alone is a pretty shocking number. And if you look on the other side, on the employer side, trust in employees is also quite low. And we can see that evidenced by all of the workplace surveillance tactics that we see from employers tracking mouse activity and mouse clicks to keyboard activity, badge swipes, and all of the draconian top-down return to office mandates. But we know that you get what you measure. And so when employers measure presenteeism and face time, that's exactly what they get. And so they get things like coffee badging, which was talked about a lot toward the end of last year. They get productivity and what some experts call the green status effect, where people want to appear green and active on Slack or Teams or whatever tool that your organization is using. And so this idea of you get what you measure is really evident in the fact that people are showing up physically and sort of checking the box to be present, but this idea that calling people back to the office and tracking their activity is going to result in better collaboration, higher productivity, better culture is just not coming to fruition.
Yeah, interesting. The world I've grown up in is, I come from a sales background, and we used to always say, show me how you pay me and I'll show you how I'll act. And so I think a lot of that at play, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we got here. But, one of the things that I'll add too is that, you mentioned, productivity. Do you feel that, many organizations have conflated productivity with just efficiencies at this point? I mean, how do you feel that that's lined up? Because there is a true disconnect between C-suites and average employees, excuse me.
I think that is absolutely part of the problem. I do think that many CEOs and even boards fail to really articulate what they mean by productivity. Are you trying to grow your top line? Are you trying to drive more profitable and sustainable growth? Are you trying to improve your EBITDA or your margins? What is it? Are you trying to improve revenue per employee? And so whatever that sort of North Star metric is, if you explain that to your people and you explain why it matters, and why it matters not only for the future of the business and the sustainability of the business, but why it matters for them and their careers and their pocketbooks, I think you're much more likely to see buy-in. One of the things I talk about in the blog post is transparency. And often, many employees don't understand how the company is even performing. How are we doing compared to last year? How are we doing
Right.
compared to our competitors?
Yeah.
Are we growing? Are we growing profitably? And so when employees don't understand exactly what we're driving toward and what direction are we marching in, and all they hear is we need better productivity or we need more efficiencies, and they don't understand the why behind those things, that is the one of the first moments where trust is lost, because
Yeah.
there's transparency and there's no common understanding on the shared goals within the organization.
I could not agree more with you. We think about this a lot inside the companies and the organizations that we deal with, and it's easy just to kind of default to it. Is it a chicken or the egg, kind of situation here? But I think that the onus is really sits with, upper management, executive teams, C-suites, whatever it may be, to do exactly what you just said. Clearly communicate the whys, and the whys are the strategy, the goals of the organization. What are we trying to accomplish? One of the things we found out, which I think was very enlightening to a lot of executive teams, is not only do we do employee competency modeling, but we also do it at the organizational level.
Mm,
And sometimes that really brings some ahas from executive teams. And what I mean by that is that a lot of C-suites think they're aligned with what are the business goals that they're trying to drive. Yet when you actually show them and break it down, the CMO to the CPO to the CCO to the CFO are not aligned.
mm,
They're all individual goals that they're driving down through their team. So there's no alignment often between the C's. So how can you have alignment with your employees across an organization? And I'm not trying to pick, one side's wrong and one side's right. But once again, if you're sitting at the C-suite, what is it? The adage is you're making the big bucks and you've got to make, better decisions there. So I always say I need to start there before you can hold the rank and file accountable for these things.
I could not agree more. In every single organization, 100% of the time, when I have seen a broken culture and a culture of low trust, I can almost always trace it back to dysfunction and a lack of trust at the senior level. And
Yeah,
so, if the executive team is not aligned, if you don't have shared goals, if you're not supporting each other and thinking of yourselves as one cohesive team, that dysfunction is going to create a ripple effect across the organization.
absolutely. All right, so let's get a little more tactical here. Okay, let's because everybody's waiting on it. So, how has AI impacted trust positively or negatively, in your opinion?
I think it's a mixed bag, but I
Okay.
would say for most organizations, it's probably veering in the direction of a negative, neutral to negative impact. And the reason I say that is when I would be interested in your thoughts on this too, and what you're seeing. But when I talk to CEOs and senior leaders, often their first thought when it comes to rolling out AI transformation or AI solutions is how quickly can I reduce my headcount? And how quickly can I replace people with AI? One of the stories that I recall from last year is I believe it was around summer when Lattice, which is an HR tech organization, announced a new feature in their system, and this new feature was aimed at onboarding digital employees.
I've read the
And
post.
yes, and people in the HR community asked a lot of questions like why and what is the purpose and how are these digital employees going to be managed? And they claimed these digital employees would have human managers. And when people in the HR community started asking questions, Lattice was not prepared with the answers.
Right.
And so I will give them credit and say they quickly retracted that announcement after the criticism that they received. But the critics of that announcement observed that what Lattice attempted to do was place AI workers on the same level as human workers.
They
And
were dehumanizing a technology. Absolutely. Yep.
exactly. And unfortunately, what that does is by humanizing AI, you're dehumanizing your employees, your people.
Yeah.
And that further erodes trust. And
Yeah.
so I think we need to get away from this mindset of how quickly can we replace our people to how can we better enable our people to be successful in their jobs, to get ready for their next job? How can we use and leverage AI to help them develop new skills, to future-proof their careers, and as a result, future-proof our organizations, help them develop new skills and make them saleable as employees? I applaud PwC, which is an organization that committed a large chunk of funding to upskilling and reskilling their people because they want their people to be successful in this age of AI. And so to long story short, to answer your question, I think so much of this comes down to honoring the humanness of the people in your organization,
Absolutely.
while still leveraging the benefits of technologies like AI.
Absolutely. And I agree with almost everything that you were going through there. I think about it quite often, and I'm going to say probably something that's a little unpopular, but you mentioned AI transformation of business. First, what was it, a decade ago, everybody was talking about the digital transformation of the business. Now we're talking about the AI transformation of the business. I would argue, though, that the people that are least equipped to strategize and manage that transformation are the ones that are doing it right now, and that is the C-suite. And I believe it was either Gartner or McKinsey just put out a report saying that if you look at C-suites in the United States, these are people that don't use AI. They don't use the tools to begin with, and yet they're the ones that are going to be the captain of the ship. And I really think that, getting to trust and how could we garner trust, because it's not about, it should be about empowerment and not replacement. And I know these little quibs are just so easy to throw around, but you really need to keep those in mind. Little things to me, because I think the last time you and I spoke, we talked about flipping the hierarchical structure of business, where it has been flipped, but a lot of people haven't really come to terms with that yet.
Mhm.
Well, the AI transformation of the business, it's going to be mission critical. And I think it would go a long way in the trust department that if you are out there as senior leadership in an organization championing the AI transformation of the business, you need to cede some responsibility to those that use those tools on a daily basis. And those are the rank and file employees that have in your organization, because I tell them all the time, hate to burst your bubble, but they haven't been waiting on you. They're using them. They're doing it every day. They
Mhm.
have to survive, right
Mhm.
now. So the fact that you're just now hearing about some version of Chat GPT, no, 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 your employees have been using it since, it was, the second it was released, that
Mhm.
version. So little things like that to me would garner a lot of trust between these two sides. Whereas, okay, so we don't have all the answers. Let's be honest about that. Maybe we should create advisory panels inside of organizations to really get the pulse, feedback, and some great ideas from the people that are using these tools right now.
I could not agree more. You're singing the tune of my song. One organization that I think did this really well was recently Gucci, the luxury goods organization, wanted to go after Z. And so they created a shadow board of Gen Z employees and ran ideas by them and created an employee listening strategy and collected feedback from them to ensure that they were creating products and creating marketing and other campaigns that would appeal to that generation of customers. A lot of organizations are rolling out reverse mentoring programs where they have early career employees mentoring senior employees on things like social media, AI, et cetera. Because to your point, folks who are earlier in their careers are way ahead on these technologies and have been using them and experimenting with them, and they're not afraid to experiment with new tools and learn. And I think that's the way to do it. I think so much of your employee listening strategy needs to be about listening to understand, not listening to refute or listening to respond to your employees or prove them wrong. And when you create an environment of psychological safety, when you create safe spaces for people to speak up and voice their ideas and voice their concerns, that's really how you truly drive innovation, not
Yeah.
through a bunch of people sitting in their ivory tower, their C-suite ivory tower, figuring out the AI transformation strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the employees are going to view it as a partnership and not being, dictated to, being coming out of sales, being closer to the sales function, CROs, and speaking with them on a daily basis. We're seeing just a massive investment in AI agents at the what most would call the BDR or the SDR stage,
Mhm,
trying to
mhm,
get, either appointments or first meetings and everything. And I'll tell you, salespeople are kind of scratching their heads right now because it is the first time, and I think in any time I can remember, that investments in tools and people and sales is rapidly falling as all that investment is moving into an AI agent and non-human resources. And it's just not a good look. And that kind of partnership, I think, could really create a better type of solution there than just buying it randomly from a vendor and just trying to plug it in or ram it down and into somebody's team. So, there's no stopping AI. AI is going to be, it is, it's the essential tool we all have
mhm,
to use. But I question that when we commoditize knowledge to such a degree that knowledge, or what people want to call intelligence, or some of these skills that is, the everyone wants to talk about right now, but once the price of that goes to zero, what are we going to be left with? What is going to differentiate any organization when every organization has the exact same knowledge base, intelligence, skill set as any other one? Because you will, and it's going to happen faster than we can even realize it. So I think that looking at beyond IQ, getting into, soft skills, what people call intelligent or emotional quotient, excuse me,
mhm.
EQ. Here at Competently, we actually bifurcate EQ into AQ, and what we call AQ is adversity quotient. So those to us are much, and not just to us, but I mean, there's actually studies against this, are much greater indicators of employee success in the marketplace than traditional, or what's going to be seen as very quickly, very traditional hard skills, intelligence sets that, God forbid, could change tomorrow. And then everybody's going to be running at some new skill that is a must have, and that'll be obsolete in another 3 months. So, I mean, I know that's kind of rambling. Feel free to jump on any of those threads. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, no, no problem. So a couple of thoughts. First of all, your comment on salespeople made me think about the idea that your salespeople are closest to your customers and your prospects, right? And so they are intimately familiar with the challenges that your customers and prospects are facing. And so wouldn't it be wise to involve them in these
Yeah.
transformations and to
Yeah.
involve them in developing these solutions? And I love to talk about the IKEA effect, right? Which says that when you are involved in the design of something, a product or a process, you're much more likely to buy in, right? All of us at some point have had that wobbly bookshelf in the background that is not the greatest, but we built it with our own hands, and so we
Yeah.
love it, and we have it.
Yeah.
It's got a special place, right? And that's what the IKEA effect is about. And so if you involve your people, especially your frontline salespeople, in developing these transformation roadmaps, you're going to see a much higher likelihood of success because they are closest to your customers. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The other is more a question and curiosity. I love how you framed this idea of EQ versus AQ. Can you maybe delve a little bit deeper into how you think about, first of all, what is AQ and how do you think about
Yeah.
the difference between the two?
Yeah, and I think let me take one step back too, because what we look at and what we refer to here at Competently is talent 3Q. It's a combination, and because you do have to look at them all in totality and then separately. It IQ, intelligent quotient, EQ, emotional quotient, and then AQ, adversity quotient. And I think that, I won't spend much time, but IQ is pretty simple. Those are the hard skills that are just, mission critical to any job, and those are, could be coding skills, could be any knowledge base, but those are the hard skills. Those are the ones that are in flux all the time. Yet in the world you're in, I'm sure that's all you hear about. We need to hire for skills and these skills and those skills, but those are all going to change. And what we have found is that, now people are starting to move a little bit more to the right, and they're starting to talk about EQ now,
Mhm.
emotional quotient. What is y- the emotional makeup? Is this person going to be a good fit culturally? Communication skills between others? Are they good team members? Looking at a little bit deeper into the humanity of, well, not the humanity, but more into the human, to find out, can this person effectively communicate inside of our organization and amongst others. And then because of my sales background, I took it one step further. And some people combine this back into EQ, but adversity quotient. What's the level of adversity you can handle at any given time? Everybody's got a different level. But what we want to make sure, or a lot of people want to make sure of, because it's the first thing that when I hired sales reps, I would always keep this in mind. At the first time anything goes sideways, because in sales, it goes sideways on your first day, 30 seconds into your job. You're going to get your first no, or something really bad. It's going to blow up in your face, but it's going to happen. And you need to understand, is this person going to sit there in the corner in a ball rocking, or is this person going to use that to move forward? And adversity, what we have found too, and I think that, and Mark talks about, Mark Agni, our CMO, talks about it a lot, is the Russian doll of change. There's so much change going on, not only in business, but just in life. It, it we're hit with so much change, and it's all the time. It never stops. And I think we
Mhm.
talked about this on last time we talked. McKinsey did a study as well, where they were discussing the fact that by their calculations, workers today can only handle about half the change they could 20 years ago. And you think about that and you went, huh? How's that? Well, it's because it never stops. 20
Mhm.
years ago, there were ebbs and flows to change. There were seconds to catch your breath and get your feet back underneath you before something else mission critical was thrown in your face that you have to deal with. But now, as they said, the Russian doll of change, it's change inside of change inside of change, and it never stops. And it is adversely affecting people. I mean, there's no other way around it. Some people rise, some people look at ways to, champion through it, and other people, it's a blocker. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm.
And we look at EQ in combination of AQ, of first identifying, what is your level that you can handle, and then secondarily, then we partner with either others, that coaches, trainers, things of that nature, that can bring tools to these organizations and to these individuals to help them with these emotional competencies, emotional skills, or the adversity skills that they need to better inside the organization.
I love everything about that. Thank you, first of all, for explaining that.
Yeah.
I've always thought about this idea that in the age of AI in particular, where our technical skills are becoming commoditized and easier to learn and to gain these skills, the soft skills will now become the power skills,
Yeah.
right? And that's essentially what you're saying through your 3Q framework. And recently, the World Economic Forum released their 2025 Future of Jobs report. And I just pulled it up because they're, according to the employers that they surveyed, the core skills for 2025, some of the top skills include resilience, flexibility, and agility. That's
Right.
exactly what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Curiosity and lifelong learning,
Yeah.
and leadership and social influence. And so we're already starting to see, the research is starting to back this up, that in this new age, this information age, and the age of AI, the soft skills, or as I like to call them, the power skills, are really the skills that are going to matter and differentiate you.
Yeah.
And
And if I could add to that, because I think you just brought up something that is, everyone really needs to hear it over and over again from an organizational level. And once the organization understands this, they can push it and help their people deal with it as well. You mentioned agility, and it is the number one competitive differentiator in the marketplace now, is the
Mhm,
ability for an organization to be able to pivot. And there are going to be business lanes that are going to be open, that are going to be closing, and you're going to have to go discover new ones. And then those are going to close, and you're going to have to discover new ones, and on and on and on. And I I I like to just tell people this. It's just that it's not reckless abandon. It's not, but you have to move faster now than ever before. You don't have the luxury of sitting and really dissecting every type of environment and use case and scenario. And that was a luxury. That was a luxury of decades past. And we don't have that. Speed is what counts now in the
mhm.
market.
Yes. And going back to this idea, right, that people are experiencing change fatigue
Oh,
across the
yeah.
board,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of shape and size of organization. You're seeing it, I'm seeing it. And so, and it's no wonder, right? Because on average, on any given day, an average American is exposed to something like 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day. The average person checks their inbox 74 times a day and spends
Guilty.
an average of 47 seconds per task before shifting focus. And by the way, when you go back to your original task, it takes you approximately 25 minutes to regain focus on that original
Wow.
task.
Wow.
And so no wonder we are in this frantic, manic mode at all times.
Yeah.
And life is so uncertain, and the world is so uncertain. And when people come to work, when they walk into the office or the virtual office, they are looking to their leaders to provide them with clarity, not
Yeah.
necessarily certainty, but clarity. And that's
Yeah.
where bringing the conversation sort of full circle back to trust, right? That's one of the ways in which you build trust, is providing clarity and over communicating and letting your people know we are going to have to be agile. We are going to have to build flexibility into our strategies and our processes, but over communicating with them every step of the way and explaining to them every step of the way what is expected of them, and not just having that once a year conversation during the annual performance review and throwing a rating on the screen and calling it a day. People need real time conversations about their performance, their goals, their career, and how their career is developing and progressing. And we cannot, we can no longer afford to be in a world where we're having those conversations once a year because our business is changing every day.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's so funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same. It's always about the people, the process, and the technology. And I always say that's people. That's the first one for a reason. And
Mhm.
if you just remember these I guess these old fogey truisms, they're going to be more true because yeah, people are going to test the boundaries. And once again, I'm a proponent of AI. We have elements of it in our platform, but I think that you really nailed it. It's how are you going to sprinkle in the humanity around the AI that's going to be able to really serve the business or serve customers or serve clients because it's all going to be the same unless you figure out a way how to put people into the mix with AI. So it is a wild world out there, I'll tell you.
I couldn't agree more. And
Yeah,
so I guess to sort of put a bow on it, or to wrap the conversation up in a packaging that's easy to digest for people, I think what we're saying is so much of it comes down to treating people like people first and employees
yeah,
second,
yeah,
treating people like adults and transparently communicating with them. That doesn't mean that they need to know every detail of every decision that's made, but what they should know is, how did you arrive at the decision? What
yeah,
alternatives did you consider? And how is this decision going to impact them, and or their pocketbooks? They need to see consistency. People need to see that the leaders in their organization are aligning their actions with their words, and they're
yeah,
doing so consistently over and over. They need to also feel heard and understood. That's where the listening comes in, right? The IKEA effect. They need to feel involved. They need
yeah.
to know that the change is being done with them and not to them. And
Oh,
then the
absolutely.
last piece comes down to accountability. You need to have
Yeah,
accountability, an accountability culture, and hold people accountable. And when people are not meeting expectations and or not behaving uh, in a manner that's consistent with your organization's values, you need to take a courageous approach and make some tough decisions as a senior leader. And then lastly, you need to role model. So this idea that, like, the the dysfunction at the top almost invariably trickles down to the rest of the organization. I think that's one that CEOs need to remember. They need to role model the behaviors that they seek in others.
yeah. So much good advice there, Malvika. So much good advice. So yeah. Well, once again, great conversation. I look forward to our next one, and thank you so much for joining us again today. And we look forward to speaking with you good soon. Oh, and by the way, Melvika, how can people get in touch with you and your organization if they're looking to, bring in someone that can help them even start to get their minds around this journey that they need to take?
Of course, yes. Atlas Group is a human capital advisory firm that's driven by the core belief that to win in the marketplace, businesses must first win in the workplace. So if you share that mindset and that philosophy, reach out to us through atvisgroup.com. That's ATVIS group.com, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. And we're always happy to chat any and all things people.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, and look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, Melvika. Bye bye.
Talk soon. Thanks.